Have you ever felt like you were so deep in the darkness, you couldn't even imagine a way out? Have you ever looked around at your life and thought, is this it? Is this really all there is for me? If you've ever been there, this story is for you. Because I've been there too. And it was in that darkness that the universe found me. My name is Lucia. I'm 34 years old, Latina. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas, daughter of 2 immigrants from a small town in northern Mexico. My mom cleaned houses. My dad worked construction. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And for the longest time, I believed that was enough. I used to think life was just about pushing through. Head down. Bills paid. Don't complain. Don't dream too big. Just survive. But nothing prepares you for the kind of loss that cracks your soul wide open. My sister, Valentina, was 29. She was light. That's the only word I have for her. She had this energy, soft, playful, like sunshine that laughed. She used to call me every morning just to tell me something ridiculous. Sometimes it was a meme. Sometimes it was a dream she had. Sometimes she'd sing to me, out of tune on purpose, just to make me roll my eyes. And then one night, she didn't call. And the next morning, my phone rang, but it wasn't her voice. It was the police. There had been an accident. A rainy night. An intersection. A drunk driver. She was gone before the ambulance even arrived. That moment, the moment I heard those words, it was like the world split in two. There was before, and there was after. I stopped functioning. That I wish I could explain the grief, but unless you've lived it, unless you've felt what it's like to wake up and forget for half a second that someone's dead, only to remember it all over again, I don't think I can. I'd wake up gasping for air, like I'd been underwater all night. I'd walk into the kitchen and see her favorite mug and start crying over coffee. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't work. People tried to help. My mom brought food. Friends left voicemails. My manager gave me 2 weeks off. But I didn't want to be helped. I wanted Valentina. I wanted to call her and tell her how much this hurts. 3 months later, I was fired. I hadn't gone back to work. Hadn't replied to HR. I was out of savings, behind on rent, and drowning in this awful mix of shame and numbness. I stopped answering texts. I turned off notifications. My fridge had almost nothing in it, just mustard, half a loaf of bread, and almond milk that had definitely expired. I kept the lights off most of the day to save energy. I'd sit on the couch and stare at the wall for hours. Sometimes I'd talk to her. Out loud. Where did you go? Why you? Why not me? There were nights I didn't want to wake up the next morning. And it was in that state, that dark, quiet, broken place, that the first tiny spark showed up. It was 2:47 a.m. I remember the time because I had insomnia so bad, I started screenshotting clocks like they were evidence of how long I'd been awake. I was on YouTube, not looking for anything in particular, just avoiding silence. Scrolling past cat videos, documentaries, late-night tarot readings. And then I saw the title, How to Change Your Life with the Power of Your Mind Law of Attraction. I almost didn't click it. It sounded like one of those cheesy scams people fall for when they're desperate. But I was desperate. So I clicked. The woman in the video was calm, glowing. She spoke like someone who knew pain and had somehow made peace with it. She talked about energy, about vibration, about how the universe responds to what you feel, not what you say. She said something I'll never forget. You're not broken. You're just out of alignment with the truth of who you are. I paused the video. I rewound it. I wrote it down. And then I cried. That night, after the video ended, I just sat there. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge and the soft ticking of the old wall clock I hated. Even that sound felt too loud. But inside me, something had shifted that I didn't understand the law of attraction. Not really. I wasn't sure I even believed it. But there was a sentence from the video that kept echoing in my head. What you imagine with feeling becomes your reality. I whispered it out loud like it was a spell, or maybe a question. What you imagine with feeling. Could I even feel anymore? The next morning, I did something strange. I grabbed a receipt from the bottom of my purse. It was crumpled, smudged, barely legible. And on the back I wrote, "Thank you for the beautiful life that's unfolding for me." It wasn't a prayer. It wasn't hope. It was more like a dare. A whisper into the void. I said it out loud. My voice cracked. My throat was dry from not speaking to anyone in days. And then I said it again. Thank you for the beautiful life that's unfolding for me. It felt ridiculous. Almost insulting. Here I was unemployed, grieving, behind on rent, and talking to a receipt like it was a sacred contract. But something in me, some forgotten part, told me to keep going. That day, I washed the dishes for the first time in weeks. Not because I felt better, but because the version of me I saw in that video, the version who had a beautiful life unfolding, wouldn't let her sink rot. I lit a candle. Just one. Lavender. It smelled like peace, like spring, like the opposite of everything inside me that I played instrumental music from YouTube. Closed my eyes, sat on the floor, and tried to visualize. It was awkward. My brain kept interrupting. This is dumb. You're wasting time. Nothing's going to change. But I tried anyway. I pictured myself walking into a bright kitchen, barefoot, in pajamas that actually matched. I imagined opening the fridge, full of food. I imagined someone calling my name, soft, loving. And I imagined smiling because I felt safe. I didn't stay there long. Just a few seconds. But I felt something flicker inside me. A memory? A possibility? I don't know. I just know it made me cry. I began to repeat that sentence like a ritual. While brushing my teeth. While microwaving leftover rice. While folding the same hoodie over and over just to feel busy. Thank you for the beautiful life that's unfolding for me. The first few days were quiet. Nothing changed, not on the outside. But inside, the static began to clear. I opened a notebook I hadn't touched in months and started writing. Not poetry. Not journaling. Just lists. Things I'm grateful for, things I want to feel, things I want to believe. Even if it was just clean socks or sunlight on the wall. Peace. Joy. Purpose. Safety. I am supported. I am not alone. I am still allowed to dream. Then came the resistance. About a week in, I hit a wall that I woke up angry. Tired. Hopeless again. I screamed at the ceiling like a lunatic. I'm doing everything you said. Where's the magic? Where's my sign? Where are you? I felt stupid. Spirituality wasn't supposed to feel like yelling into a void. I stopped doing the routine for 2 days. Went back to the numbness. Scrolling. Silence. Shame. But on the third day, something odd happened. I stepped outside for a walk, just to get air. I hadn't showered. My hair was in a bun so messy it looked like it had its own personality. As I passed a park bench, I heard a woman behind me on the phone. She said, "Ever since I started practicing gratitude like they teach in The Secret, it's like things keep lining up for me. It's wild." My chest tightened. The Secret. That was one of the videos I'd watched. My heart started pounding. It was such a small thing, a stranger on the phone. But in that moment, it felt like the universe had turned around and winked. I know it might sound silly to some people. A stranger on a phone talking about The Secret in a public park? That's not exactly thunder from the sky. But for me it was everything. I had walked to that park in a fog. Head down. Hoodie pulled tight. I wasn't looking for a miracle. I wasn't even looking for a sign. I just wanted air. But the moment I heard her voice, clear, calm, sure, something deep inside me stirred. Like the tiniest ember being breathed on. A flicker of recognition. She said, "I just started saying thank you all the time. Even when things were bad. Especially then. And it's like the more grateful I am, the more things start flowing to me." And I thought, she's talking about me. She was older than me. Maybe mid-40s. Blonde ponytail, wearing scrubs. Looked like she'd just gotten off a hospital shift. She didn't look like someone who had time for spiritual fluff. She looked real. And there she was, casually talking about manifestation like it was as natural as paying for groceries. I didn't say anything to her. Didn't turn around. I just sat there, still, like if I moved too much, I might break the spell. And when she walked away, I just whispered, "Thank you." I don't know if it was to her, or to Valentina, or to the sky. Maybe it was to all three that moment changed me. Not because something huge happened, but because I realized something. The universe had been listening, even when I doubted, even when I gave up for 2 days, even when I yelled at the ceiling like a madwoman. It had still been listening. And more than that, it had answered. Softly, subtly, but unmistakably. I walked home different. I noticed things I hadn't seen in weeks. The way the sunlight reflected on the building windows, the smell of grass, the sound of kids laughing across the street. And for the first time in months, I felt alive. I wasn't healed. I wasn't fixed. But something inside me had reopened. That night, I pulled out the same crumpled receipt and wrote on the other side, "The universe listens to me." I taped it to the bathroom mirror, and I said it out loud 3 times. From then on, I returned to the practices, but with something new. Faith. Not blind faith. Not forced positivity. But a quiet, inner knowing that I wasn't just talking to myself. Something bigger was responding. Not on my timeline. Not in the way I expected. But still, it was there. The next day, I found a notebook I'd forgotten I had. The cover said, "Create something beautiful." And so I did. Each morning, I filled 1 page. Sometimes it was affirmations. I am safe. I am guided. I am healing. I am creating a new life. Sometimes it was letters to Valentina. Sometimes it was just lists of what I wanted to feel. Hope, joy, stability, connection, and slowly, gently, the fog began to lift. My body felt lighter. I started drinking more water, taking short walks, washing my sheets. Tiny things, but they meant everything, because they were signals, to myself, to the universe, that I was available for more. It started small. So small I could have missed it, if I hadn't been paying attention. It was a Thursday morning. I was sipping instant coffee from the chipped mug Valentina once called hideously charming, when I checked my email for the first time in a week. And there it was. Subject: Are you still available? It was from a company I had applied to months ago. Before the crash, before the grief, before I had disappeared into the numbness. A part-time, remote administrative position. Flexible hours. Decent pay. I blinked at the screen, unsure if it was real. I read the email again. Then again. My first instinct? You're not ready. You're still a mess. You can't do this. But then something quiet interrupted that voice. Something softer, steadier, warmer. You asked for a new beginning. And I had. I took a deep breath, sat up straighter, and replied. 2 hours later, I was in a Zoom interview. The woman on the call, Laura, had kind eyes and a voice that made me feel safe. She asked me about my experience, then paused. You know, she said, feeling about you. I don't usually say this during interviews, but I have a really good. My eyes stung. I nodded, held it together, and said 2 days later, I got the job. Thank you. I'm ready. It wasn't just about the money, though that helped. It was what the job represented. It was proof that even in the darkest, most hopeless season of my life, the seeds I had planted were growing. Quietly, invisibly, but without fail. A week later, another surprise. I was walking to the corner store to buy oatmeal and peanut butter, my budget meal of choice, when I saw it. An envelope on the sidewalk. No name. Just a small red heart sticker on the back. I almost walked past it. But something said, pick it up. Inside was $200 in cash. No note. No ID. Just money. Crisp bills and silence. I stood there frozen. Tears welled up before I could stop them. Is this real? Is this for me? I looked around. No one nearby. Just wind and leaves and the sound of traffic in the distance. And in that moment I knew. It was a gift. From life. From the universe. From whatever force had been gently guiding me back to myself, that I held the envelope close and whispered. Thank you. I know this is you. But perhaps the most powerful shift wasn't the job, or the money. It was something harder to describe. It was the quiet. The good kind. The kind that didn't scream with sadness or ring with loneliness. The kind that held me. I started sleeping through the night again. No panic attacks. No more waking up at 3 a.m. I felt the sun on my face and smiled. Not because something extraordinary had happened, but because I felt present. I was here, alive, healing, whole even in pieces. I went back to the park, the same bench where I'd first overheard that woman talking about the secret. This time, I brought my notebook. I sat under the tree, closed my eyes, and wrote a single sentence over and over. Thank you for the beautiful life that's unfolding for me. And this time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt it. In my chest. In my bones. In the rhythm of my breath. A knowing. A calm. A sacred yes. They say love shows up when you stop chasing it. I never fully understood that, until it happened to me. It had been about 3 months since I got the job, and for the first time in a long while, I was beginning to live again. Not just exist. Not just survive. But live. I was cooking again. Lighting candles. Laughing at little things. The way my cat blinked at me with total judgment. Or how my neighbor's wind chime always seemed to ring at the exact moment I sat down to meditate. It was during one of those grocery runs, just before sunset, when I met him. His name was Marcus. He was in line behind me, holding nothing but a copy of The Alchemist and a bag of clementinas. I made some dumb comment about how the book changed my life, and he smiled. Funny, he said. I just picked it up for the 3rd time. I always find something new in it. We talked for 20 minutes in the parking lot, under pink clouds and the smell of fresh rain on concrete. It felt easy, familiar, safe. That we went for coffee the next week. Then again. Then dinner. And then life just began unfolding with him in it. He never asked me to be anything other than who I was. I told him everything. About Valentina. About the grief. About the law of attraction. About the envelope of money and the strange signs and the way I'd started to believe in magic again. He didn't flinch. He just said, "That makes sense. You have that kind of energy. Light, like you've been somewhere dark and came back glowing." That made me cry. But not because I was sad. I cried because he saw me. Not the version of me I'd curated. Not the healed or strong me. He saw the becoming. And he held it with reverence. Around this time, I did something I'd been avoiding. I walked into Valentina's room. I hadn't touched anything since the day she died. Her sweater still hung on the chair. Her perfume still faintly lingered in the air, like memory clinging to fabric. This time I didn't break. I picked up the sweater, pressed it to my chest, and whispered, "Thank you for being my light." And then I sat on her bed, that little twin mattress with too many throw pillows. And I talked to her out loud. I told her everything. About the job. About Marcus. About the woman in the park. About the dream that had turned into a life. And then I said what I hadn't been able to say before. I forgive the world for taking you. And I choose to live for both of us. That night, I had a dream. She was there, standing under the tree in the park, wearing the same hoodie she always stole from me. She didn't say much. Just smiled and said, "You remembered." I woke up with my hand on my heart and tears on my pillow. But they weren't heavy anymore. They were holy. It's been almost a year since the night I whispered that sentence for the first time. Thank you for the beautiful life that's unfolding for me. I didn't believe it then. Not really. It felt like a wish scribbled in the dark. A string of words I clung to because I had nothing else. But now, looking around at my life, I see how that sentence was never just a wish. It was a seed. A declaration. A promise. A portal. And the woman I am now? She bloomed from those words. My life today isn't perfect. I still get afraid. I still miss Valentina with a kind of ache that never really leaves. It just softens around the edges. I still have days where I forget. Where I fall back into old patterns. Worry. Doubt. Grief. But now, I know how to come back. I know that I'm never really alone. And I know that the universe, it listens. Even when I whisper. Even when I break. Even when I forget how powerful I am. The law of attraction isn't about wishing for things and hoping they appear. It's about becoming the version of yourself who already has them. It's about alignment. About trusting that your desires are not random. They are instructions. They're the breadcrumbs guiding you back to who you really are. I used to think I was broken. That grief had ruined me. That I'd never recover. But now I see the truth. I was being rebuilt. Every time I chose gratitude over fear. Every time I chose presence over panic. Every time I chose to believe, even a little, I was returning to myself, piece by sacred piece. So if you're watching this, if you're in the middle of your own darkness, if you've forgotten what it feels like to dream or hope or believe, let me tell you this. You are not broken. You are not behind. And you are not alone. Your life is not over. It's just beginning again. Maybe in a way you never expected. Maybe in a way that doesn't make sense yet. But something beautiful is unfolding for you. Right now. Even if you can't see it yet. Just say yes. If this story touched something in you, I want you to type 4 simple words in the comments. I trust the universe. Let that be your moment. Your energetic yes. Your way of telling life, I'm ready now. And if you're walking this same path, healing, hoping, trying to believe again, don't do it alone. Click the like button, not just for this video, but as a promise to yourself. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Stories that remind you of your own light. And wherever you are, whatever you're facing, I'm holding space for you. Because I've been there. And I believe in what's coming for you. With all my heart.